Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of The Big Break Show. I'm here with Mr. Jesse Vasquez, and today we have a good one for you. I'm excited because, what are you doing, dancing over there?
No, you know how like on like video games when it's like the intro, when like somebody like, you say you go choose like a Pokemon character, they'll be like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know, like you click on the character, they'll be like, they'll make these moves. I think we should do that every time we like introduce each other. Like if I'm like, I'm going to introduce Rafa right now.
Mortal Kombat back in the day where you would click on a character and they start doing this?
Yeah.
They start doing the moves?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So you talk about me and then I'll just like get up there and make the moves.
The listeners are going to be like, what the hell are you guys doing here? Because they can't see us. They're just listening to it. Yeah, sorry, guys. Jesse distracted me. But we're here. We have a really good episode for you guys today because we brought... You want to introduce it here, Jesse?
Yeah, Stephanie Figueros, or Figueroa, if I said that.
Figueros. Stephanie Figueros.
Yeah, Stephanie, please forgive me. I am horrible at butchering last names. That's what I do. That's my middle name is butcher last names. But anyway, she was here talking about some really cool things. First off, she was a nurse. For everybody out there I know there's a lot of clinicians that follow us. She's been able to make the move from the nursing world into the hospitality sector. And she's grown super fast in the last couple of years. She's managing her own properties. She manages other people's properties. She's created a community called the STR Nation. I think she might have a podcast. I could be wrong on that, but she's been doing some really cool things really fast, right, Rafa?
Dude, she's crushing it. I every time I talk to her, she's doing something new and just way above what she was doing the last conversation I had with her. I first met her through Jason, our buddy Jason here in Long Beach, remember?
Yeah.
And he was part of STR Nation in the beginning. He would help them. And so we had a meetup together, and then I met her. And then now, when I had a talk with her in Nashville, I was like, dude, what? Like, you're crushing it. So I really wanted to have her on the show because I want people to kind of see what's possible, what she did. I mean, she's honestly like her growth mindset. It's amazing. One of the best I've seen. I'm really excited because she talks a lot about that. She talks a lot about her perspective, the investing she's done, how far she's gone, and why she's gone that far, right? So I think the listeners are going to get a really good perspective and really good value from just this episode alone because the possibility is endless.
Yeah. And it's really good. Today was a good actionable, like watching the progress or talking about the progress with somebody, within a 2-year span. And again, leaving a high performing, high achieving nursing degree, and how she actually, this is one thing too that I think is really cool, which I talk about, and Rafa, we talk about this, the skills that she had in the healthcare industry, she actually translated those into the hospitality industry. And a lot of the times our W-2 jobs or what we've done our entire lives, those actions or those learned principles can actually translate to hospitality in so many different ways. And she talks about that too. So it's a good episode.
Yeah, she does a great way of explaining that and kind of putting it into perspective. So without further ado, here is Stephanie Figueros. Hey guys, Rafa here. A lot of you guys have been asking me if I have a course, if I teach, if I mentor my short-term rental business. And the answer is I do actually. I just recently released my very first course. It has about 120 videos. If you're part of the monthly membership, we are adding 2 new videos a month in current issues or projects that I'm working on within the short-term rental business. And we do 1 monthly call live where you have access to me to ask me all the questions you want. So if you're interested in joining the course or if you want any more info, click the link below. It is application only. We only open it to a certain amount of students every month because we want people who are serious, who really want to be a part of this, who actually want to take their short-term rental business and grow it, or starting from scratch and want to learn how to actually acquire properties doing rental arbitrage. If that's you, if you're serious and you really want to do this, click the link below, schedule a call with me or my team, and we'll get you going. Now back to the show.
Welcome everybody to the Big Break Show. We have an exciting guest today, Stephanie, and I don't want to butcher your last name, even though you just told me this a second ago. And Stephanie has a lot of stuff going on right now in her life. You have I can't even put it into words. I'm gonna let you talk about it. So Steph, tell us who you are, introduce yourself to the Big Breaker. We got to have like an actual nickname for our people listening.
The Big Breakers, we can call everybody the Big
Breakers. The Breakers, the Break Dancers. Yeah, go ahead, Steph, tell us who you are.
Sure. So hey guys, I'm Stephanie Figueros. I'm a registered nurse turned real estate investor and entrepreneur. I specialize in short-term rentals, but specifically long-distance real estate investing. I self-manage all my rentals from California, and I'm in Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, and have built an in-house team. I've dived into flipping and also now co-hosting, and I've also dabbled with the arbitrage game too when I first started. And now we're just going.
So I'm really excited to have you on because Stephanie, I've kind of watched your entire journey from the beginning, like kind of from the sidelines. We've kind of been around the same circle, and we really didn't start talking until probably like the last year or so, I think. And so I've kind of seen you grow like substantially from where you started to where you're at, and just the people around you again. So I want you to kind of talk a little bit about that first, because I want the listeners, because the majority of our listeners are new people who are into short-term rentals, of course, and it becomes difficult when somebody wants to get started or kind of follow down that path and that trajectory, that journey. And like you, in my eyes, to give you a little perspective, you've been kind of fearless from watching you go from like here in California to like Florida and like different locations that you're at, and just actually purchasing and partnering and doing everything that you've been doing is like something that a lot of people really can't even do, right? Like even myself, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that because it's so far, or it's like just seems so high. So how did that look for you in terms of like going from being a registered nurse to actually wanting to invest and actually getting into the game?
I think for me, honestly, it was really the pandemic. It was right before the pandemic. I was thinking to myself in the hospital, like, this can't be it. I don't know what it is, but I'm meant for more. It's funny because I'm Filipino, and so it's like in my blood to be a registered nurse.
Yeah.
And then I always knew that this wasn't going to be the end game for me. I just had no idea what it could be. And then I was actually diving into the e-commerce game, and then it was brought up like, why don't you do real estate? And I'm like, okay. So I just saw some YouTube videos to be honest, and I was like, all right, that's it. We're going to commit to it. And then I think what really helped though was finding people that were actually doing it in today's market. The podcast, the books, the YouTube videos were great, but it was once I started actually meeting people in person and just hearing their stories of success, it made it to where it's like, okay, there's no reason why I can't do this if they can too. And so the more I surrounded myself with the people that were actually doing it and just listening and being like a sponge and soaking it in, I took their examples as inspiration for me to be able to just go for it and not hold back. And now I feel like, man, if I could tell myself like 10 years ago that, guess what, you're not actually going to be a nurse, you're going to break the mold and actually do this entrepreneurial path and be your own boss, I would have been like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And now I'm like, this was what I was meant to do. Like my personality fits this so well. And it's crazy, the translation between nursing and real estate. Everyone's like a patient to me. So whether I realize it or not, it actually set me up, the nursing side, for success in real estate because it's all relationship based.
Yeah, totally. I think, coming from, I worked in healthcare, obviously I wasn't a nurse or anything like that. That change is a big change. But I always talk about this in the past, like what you do in your W-2 job can translate to any type of hospitality. It's in you. In fact, I think for most Filipinos, were you born in the Philippines, Steph?
Nope, I was born and raised here.
I was going to say that you don't actually get a birth certificate until you become a nurse in the Philippines. Like they don't give you a certificate. And I'm only saying that because everybody, I have a lot of VAs that work with me and they're from the Philippines. Each one of them, except for one, has a nursing degree, like literally all of them. And it's like almost like they were forced into nursing. And that's exactly what happens. Like their family's like, you got to be a nurse, you got to be a nurse. So it's kind of like that Gary Vee concept, like doing what your parents want you to do, then all of a sudden turning 28 and you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's that same kind of concept. But it's really cool to watch what you've done, just like Rafa said. So what is your thought process going behind, like you just said, you treat every client like a patient. So are you trying to be like known and trusted? Like what's that process like?
For me, it's part of building that rapport very quickly, and it's meeting whoever it is where they are at. I find it's different when you talk to, like, on the guest standpoint. If it's their first time at an Airbnb, their questions are going to be much different versus if they've been through quite a few Airbnbs or short-term rentals days. Same with clients too. Meeting them where they're at and going from that standpoint versus where I'm at that's kind of how that looks like, or how I frame things. And that's pretty much like with everybody I talk to, whether they're getting started or they're advanced, I meet them wherever they are.
Gosh. Okay, quick question though. What are we referring to here? Are we referring to like short-term rental investors, or are we talking about like other people that you're working with in terms of like properties that you're purchasing?
So this was more for guests, but like on the purchase side, when I'm talking to owners to see if they want to sell, it's similar. It's like finding out what is it you're actually what's the problem you're trying to solve, and then figuring out what's in my toolbox to be able to fit them versus my end goal and trying to like force it to work. It's more like, you tell me what is it that you're looking for, and I'll let you know if that's something that I can help you with.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Totally confused on that one. So, okay. So as far as the guest communication side of things, I want to dive into that a little bit, because a lot of people, they don't understand, and you've scaled quite a bit and you're doing quite a bit of things now. And so how does that process look for you in terms of like your systems, your team, all of that fun stuff?
So for me, I love to automate everything. I think you kind of have to when you're starting to scale. So I have in-house, right now I have one virtual assistant. I actually just leaned it out. I had more than that before, but we had some business structure changes. So they pretty much cover the day-to-day with both the vendors. They do a little bit of marketing and the guest communications, but primarily we use like Asana for all of our to-do tasks list. WhatsApp for group communications, and open phone when it comes to actually having them talk to other people. And that way I can kind of oversee everything. But that's kind of what it looks like. And I use Loom for training and PowerPoint. And so I'm right now, the scalability part of it is I have to get myself out. So utilizing virtual assistants has been like super huge. I wish I did it sooner than when I did it.
Funny how we all end up saying that at some point.
Yeah, that's true. How many properties are you managing right now, Steph? Like, what's your portfolio looking like?
I was at 9 for a little bit, but then some business structures changed where I actually had to liquidate 3 of them. So I'm actually starting back over on the co-hosting side. So I just onboarded 1. So I'm currently at 7, with some that are currently just pending right now, but actively are 7.
Can I ask you why you ended up letting go of 3 of those properties?
Well, we had a co-hosting business with somebody else, and the partnership dissolved. And so during that dissolvement, it had to be agreed on that we had to pretty much give everything away from it. So that's kind of why we lost those 3 properties. It kind of snowballed into 2 were taken back by the owner, and then the one that was left, we ended up giving to somebody else.
Got it. Rafa and I were just talking about co-hosting even offline, or maybe it was our last podcast. Like, I feel like co-hosting is the easiest way to build cash quickly, depending on the property and depending on what you charge. It is very time consuming for everybody out there listening to this. Like, it takes a lot of time and energy to put this together. And if I can give anybody a caveat to this, and this is me, years of experience in this space, don't just take any property. You have to resonate with the owner of the property. And I'll just give you an example. If somebody's like calling you too much, or before you even bring them on, they're going to have that same type of process when you have them as a co-host. In fact, it's probably going to 10x times that, which is why I like working with like passive investors, because a lot of times they're just like, I'm going to furnish a place, you deal with it, I don't care, I just want to check at the end. But when it's somebody's like one only property that they have, and Rafa, you're an example of this, like people will reach out to you so much, and Steph, you probably know this too. So like, what kind of advice would you give for people that are wanting to co-host? Is it something similar to what I just said, or have you had to deal with any pain in the butt owners yet?
I wouldn't say they're all like patients to me. So it's like, it's nothing that I haven't handled in some way, shape, or form, but you're definitely right. Setting the expectations up front when it comes to communications of what that's going to look like after the fact is big. I do think, like, I always ask owners, like, what is your goal with this investment? Is this actually like a second home for you? Are you trying to make money from it? Like, are you going to be selling this place in a couple of years, or going to keep it forever? And I kind of judge based off of their goals if it's the right fit for me. I have said no, though, before when it doesn't fit what I'm looking for, or if it's just not in an area that I'd rather be in. So having those expectations up front and not having to say no to every single, or say yes to every single house is huge. Because I made the mistake of saying yes when I probably should have said no. But it was a learning experience for the next one. So I see it all as like, it was a win regardless, even if it didn't quite work out.
I love that you said that.
Let me give you guys an example. What just happened to me real quick this is something that recently just happened. And I hope he's not listening to this, but if he is, it's fine anyway. So there was a husband and a wife that were going through divorce as I was picking this property up. You guys know where I'm going with this already? So literally, the wife that the divorce was happening with, she literally showed up at the house, like wanting to live in her home when there was guests there. And didn't tell anybody. My team called me and they're like, hey, Jess, we got a big problem. I was like, what is it? And they're like, this person just showed up at the house. There's guests there. She wants entry back in the home. And that was me again, not thinking like he told me like we're going through a divorce. It's been kind of ugly. I didn't think about that the context of them owning that home together, her leaving the main home and then going into that's obviously their investment property. So when I bring this stuff up, it's like, imagine having a short-term rental where somebody's literally showing up at the house, like pissed off that people are in the home.
That's insane.
Dude, it was freaking nuts. And she went into the home. Like she literally went inside of the house. And like, you can't have that happen. So that was, again, me just not putting things in context. It was like, I just wanted to get this property going. I didn't put enough detail and thought into it. And that's what I mean. It's like, you got to be very thoughtful when you're bringing properties on. It'll find out the situation with the people that you're working with.
Yeah, I don't co-host for anybody. You know that.
Yeah.
There's only one person that I co-host for, and it was as a solid of a friend of mine. So otherwise, I don't like having people looking over my shoulder. I don't like to have that responsibility over my head. I can do it all myself, so I just don't do the co-hosting thing. Might change, who knows, maybe, but I've gotten so many opportunities and I always end up giving them away to other people because I just don't like to deal with it. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just that I prefer to, if I have a headache to deal with, I want it to be my own headache that was brought upon by me or my team rather than someone else outside of my control. I think just that's my own personal perspective on it. But it is a great business model. You can get started and make a lot of money really fast as long as you know what you're doing. I'm a big believer in you have to know at least how to host or how to deal with guest communications at some point. Because if you're brand new and you're starting and you don't even know how to handle that, you probably shouldn't be asking people to manage their property. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's a great way to learn, get started, and to get introduced into the business itself, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you this, and Steph, maybe you can give some context to this. Within my first year of co-hosting, I was making $10,000 a month, like literally 10 grand a month after expenses were done. And that was 1 year, you guys. So like, if you do this the right way and you get the right properties, you can literally make 10K a month, which is pretty damn good for a salary for a lot of people. So especially like where I'm from in the Central Valley, where 10 grand to you guys down south.
Again, like that's freaking great.
Yeah. So Steph, you want to give a little bit of context to that too?
Yeah, it's crazy how it does add up. But for sure, like these owners look at you as the expert. Like you have to you have to know more than they do for sure. And I do think that's kind of what, like, if you're starting out and you don't have that experience in co-hosting, or at least it's a lot harder to be able to prove to somebody that you are able to do it without a track record. So sometimes leveraging at least partners might be a good way to at least, or a mentor of some sort, so that at least you can say, well, I partner with somebody, and then on the back end, they're overseeing if you have questions too. But it's funny because I actually I actually didn't want to co-host a year ago. I did not. The same reasons that Rafa was saying. I was like, I don't want to do it. And I just want to worry about rolling properties. But then I think what ended up naturally happening was just people were noticing, and they felt like, well, Steph's doing it. I trust her. I want to work with her. So, just take my property. Yeah. So, you know what? I stopped saying no and started saying, all right, how? Let's figure out, like, I'm already doing this. So if I absorb them into already what I'm doing and give them the benefit of it, and then make that income the same way you were saying, Jesse, like, it could work. I just had to change a little bit of how I were to think about these things instead of just saying no. But like, I think I've gone through that brainwave of no to maybe to, or I'll consider it, to yes, just give it to me. Now I'm building the systems to where it's a different place that I am now versus a year ago.
So what are your parameters with that in terms of what properties you're taking? Because you got to have some kind of guidelines, and so that they make sense for you, right? What are those guidelines for you?
Part of it is certain states. I had a New Yorker that wanted me to take theirs, but and it's not that it's too far. That's not even the problem. At this point, distance doesn't really matter to me. I just, for whatever reason, I was like, I don't know if I want to have something one in New York. So I find sometimes having multiple in one market's a little bit easier, because when I went to Texas, I was able to not just go visit their property. I went to go visit my property too, and kind of just hit many birds with one stone. And then the other factor that I look at is like their bedroom counts. I like bigger houses to run. If I'm going to run something, I want it to be worth my time. So I try to go for bigger houses is another part. I don't like older houses just because they always have issues unless it's like completely rehabbed. A lot of it is the market. If I don't think it's a market that I would want to be in necessarily, I'm a little bit more hesitant to take it on. if it's a market that I would buy in, then that's a lot easier for me to say yes. Because if you're not making money for them, it's a lot harder to have a positive relationship if they didn't buy right in the first place. So I think having those expectations, some people, they already have the house. They just need somebody to run it. That is a lot easier to say yes to versus I bought this house, I think it's going to do good. I hope you can make it money. And then now I'm kind of held to, well, maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing if it's going to make money. I don't know yet. So those are kind of the parameters I look at when to say yes or no to co-hosting for somebody.
Got it. Do you run numbers for them ahead of time and give them like a performance sheet?
It depends. Yes, for some I do. For some they already have the house, so at that point it's already there. They're not going to sell it just cause. So, but for those that are like, I'm not sure if I should make this an STR or if this would work well, then I will write numbers and do a pro forma for them.
Got it. And the reason why I bring that up now is because in order to make, and Rafa and I, we were just talking about this on our last podcast, in order for somebody to make money on a short-term rental right now, or even a mid-term rental or any rental in general, you could put 20% down and they're not going to cash flow. So it's like, I'll ask the owners, like, how much is your mortgage? A lot of times they're like, why do you want to know that? It's because at the end of the day, if I'm making money and they're not, how pissed are they going to be? So it has to be like a win-win situation. So somebody buying at 7% interest right now, a $500,000 home, and they're paying $4,000 a month, and their mortgage, not including water, sewer, garbage, electrical, they're all in at $4,500, and the property's going to make $5,000. This is where co-hosting is going to be super hard for people that are starting off right now. Like, you have to learn, like, go take Rafa's program, understand what he's doing to run your own business. Because at the end of the day, you can't pay a co-host 20 or 25% if you're buying something right now from scratch. Like, a lot of them don't work. Are you seeing that same thing too, Steph? Or I know that you're kind of spread out in different areas.
Yeah, I'm finding that too. Those that are looking to buy, it's like, well, I help them look at their numbers to see, because I'm like, if you can't afford a co-host for this, and if you really don't want to learn how to self-manage, it's not going to be a good deal because of those exact reasons.
And they got to furnish too, Steph. Like, that's like a 3-2 is going to be $25,000.
Yeah, I had a host or a guy, an owner, who wanted me to co-host, and then once I told him how much you have to put into the property for furnishing, he literally was like, he went crazy. I was like, bro, what are you expecting me to take this over like as a blank canvas and make you thousands of dollars? Like, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Funny that you say that too, because sometimes I find that there's hosts that run their properties and they're not doing as well, and they're wanting me to run it, but they're wanting me to make 10 times the amount. And I'm like, well, if it's just a pure change of hands, there's only so much good management can do unless you're willing to actually make some physical improvements to the house itself, whether that's like amenities or decor, photos. So I'm finding when I talk to people, depending if they are brand new, giving them like these are the expenses, like even like insurance. People don't think about, having additional insurance outside of their homeowners. The furnishings, the resupply, pest control, depending on if it's like a market that absolutely needs it. So it does add up. And then having the management fee, I sometimes tell people, maybe you're better off having somebody else run it for you, or learning how to run it, or even getting a VA. Yeah. Yeah,
because it's just, you don't want them to be upside down. And at the end of the day, it's like, and that's where it becomes difficult, is if they're not happy, guess what they're going to go do, Steph? Tell everybody. Like, Stephanie's not going to be able to do this. She can't, even though you're hitting like, say, the 60, 70, 80% tier, they're going to go and tell everybody like, Stephanie didn't do a good job. But in fact, you were doing a good job, but they were upside down on their deal. So I feel like right now is a really, unless you bought properties 2, 3, 4 years ago, or even like some people bought properties 10, 15 years ago, those are awesome because you got the low interest rates, or even higher interest rates. You paid things down. It's totally different than now. So yeah, I was just curious on the co-hosting side. And just like Rafa said, I think it's one of the easiest ways to get business, to make money, but you have to freaking know how to deal with people, and you have to be able to know how to communicate, and you have to be like, professional operators nowadays, Steph, they're winning. These one-off people aren't. It's like, you have to get to that level of being a professional operator. So that being said, like, what are you guys doing right now to become, well, not only that you have the STR Nation, all these other things, so you're creating kind of your own space, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. It's like, what are you guys doing to be professional operators in this space? Is there anything you guys are doing different?
I mean, for me personally, especially, learning how to do this business better, whenever it comes to listing optimization, revenue management, I'm starting to really dive into how to really look at like pacing and how to price things differently like hotels do. So adding that type of professionalism into it. I think some people, especially like with price labs and dynamic pricing, they just kind of put a number on the base price and then hope for the best. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. But not many people actually try to go one step further and learn how to do it and then be able to have success with it too. I actually just, I did some major tweaking to my calendars all over the place. And I'm doing kind of like a test to see, what's going to be the results of me trying to, manipulate the minimum night stays versus with what the market is showing. And I got literally 13 bookings across like, I think 6 properties in 2 days, which actually was more than what I was getting in the past 2 weeks. So I don't know, having that sense of like, I'm doing this not as a hobby, but as a business to make money. I think a lot of people, when they first go into this, I don't see dabbling into STRs as a way for success nowadays. You kind of have to go into this with the mindset of, I'm here to become the best operator. And so when I share that with owners that, look, this is all I do for a living is short-term rentals. I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. I listen to people who are doing it better than me. I never stop learning. People like that and they gravitate towards it. And that usually is what convinces them that you are the best person to actually run their rental for them. So running people's properties makes me run my own properties better, or it forces me to, which is one nice part about co-hosting or being responsible for other people. You have to do a good job.
Yeah, it pushes you. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, but like finding properties to co-host, and people are probably going to give me crap for this. It's not freaking hard. Like it is literally not hard to find properties to co-host. I don't know if you guys have had that. I know Rafa probably has properties that are thrown at him all the time, but all you have to do is go to real estate meetups and educate realtors about what you could do. What do realtors need right now? They need to figure out how to make money for their investors, right? They got to figure that stuff out. So you can be a huge asset to investors or real estate agents that can work together with you. So that's how I was able to grow my portfolio like within the first year, Steph, like quick. It was just literally by going to one PMZ meetup where there was 50 agents where I just talked for 20 minutes. And that was literally it. And I think too, you talked about this a minute ago. This is something I've learned over the years too, Steph. So take this with a grain of salt. But if you go deep in a market, I feel like it's way better. And I think you're kind of doing this now instead of like, I see a lot of property managers, they'll just take stuff everywhere, like really focus in on like, say, Central California or Anaheim or Orange County, and then whatever Texas state you're in and grow in those markets. Cause if not, it's like, you'll get these one-off things and it's harder to grow, I think, if you do that. Cause it's just, I think growing deep in a market is better. That's just me particularly, how I feel about it, but my own 2 cents. Rafa, tell me I'm wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. The co-hosting thing to me, it's a great way to make money, but you really have to know what the hell you're doing nowadays to make it stand out. Everything Stephanie's been saying is spot on, right? It's not the hobbyist. It's not the set it and forget it price, right? Settings. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing. Even me, sometimes when I'm running around, I forget to look at my pricing. And next thing I know, I'm vacant for 10 days, and I'm like, crap, right? Across 45 properties, and it's like, dude, I have to go there like every week. It's on my calendar to actually spend an hour every single day going over my pricing, right? And making sure that, these properties are staying booked at all times. It's the one thing that I actually do in the entire business now is making sure that everything's booked and fully optimized for pricing as well. And I don't know how I feel doing it for other people because now you really do have someone that's relying on you. You don't have a choice. So I don't know. I mean, it's great. I can see both sides of it. Stephanie, I want to pivot a little bit because I want to know what aside from co-hosting, because you said you play with arbitrage a little bit, and I know you own a couple properties, right? So, what's that look like for you in terms of how you structure it? Are you only going after co-hosting stuff now, or are you still trying to arbitrage, or are you still looking to buy?
So for sure, I'm still looking to buy. It just so happens, like, it's funny what Jesse was saying. It's not as hard. Like, I have a lot of leads that are coming in for co-hosting, and so right now, my focus is just kind of like, I'm not trying to like take over the world or anything like that, but if they're really solid leads, I'm kind of just focusing on nurturing those. But at the same time, it's funny because when I'm looking at co-hosting people, it's like, I had somebody that was looking to co-host, but instead they're looking to sell. So in that case, I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can make this work. But buying is what we want at the end of the day. But now I don't see a reason why I shouldn't consider co-hosting now that I'm starting to build more of the infrastructure for it. Versus a year ago, like I said, I wouldn't have said yes to co-hosting at all. I would have said no, or I did say no. So we're looking to continue to buy. We've had some good leads. It's funny because we're trying to bring it back to California, but we're looking to get a midterm out here. But then I always find that in the markets that I'm already in, people just like, oh, she's there. Let's send her some houses. And so we almost got a Gatlinburg property off market creatively. But it didn't quite work out with the numbers completely, but we were pretty close. And in that market, it's hard to get anything creatively right now, especially. So definitely still trying to buy or looking to buy. It's just right now I'm kind of just, at least as of this week, it's just been co-hosting week. But like 2 weeks ago, it was like, I'm going to buy a week. So I find it just kind of changes on the month and what's in front of me. If I don't have any like co-hosting leads to work on, then I go right back into looking to buy. So on the arbitrage front too, I'm still open to it. It's just not something that I'm actively seeking, but if a good opportunity comes up, I don't see why I should say no sometimes. So yeah, I know that sounds like I'm kind of all over the place a little bit, but I find like, look, just tell me your problem and I'm pretty sure I have a solution for you. So
yeah, Steph, one other thing that's really good for everybody listening right now too, this is how I landed a couple co-hosting deals. In fact, one of my best co-hosting properties that I have, Rafa, it's the Don Pedro place on the reservoir. I think you've seen it. I was trying to have you come out to do a mastermind out here. Steph and everybody listening right now, any listings that are sitting on the property or sitting on the market for more than 90 days, I'll put a performance together through Mashvisor, call the agent and say, hey, is this listing getting ready to expire? I just wanted to let you know that this is how much money that this could potentially make. I see that the owners of this property haven't been able to sell. Is there any particular reason why? Normally, real estate agents are they're very defensive. They're like, oh, we're going to sell it. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, hey, look, give this note to the owner to let them know that this is what I could potentially do for them. So basically, it'll show how much money they can make as a short-term or mid-term rental. And then I will say, let's get this operating, let's say for 6 months or a year as a short-term or mid-term rental where it actually shows cash flow. And then we'll sell this to an investor. So once that actually happens, where you pick up a property, you help the family out, and then you sell it for a profit when they couldn't sell it initially, that's when real estate agents go, light bulb goes off, and they're just like, this is why I need to work with Stephanie. So they will tell all their friends, and then they'll tell other friends, and all of a sudden now you got that homeowner sending your information to other people. You have realtors that are now contacting you because of you being able to help them sell that property. So there's multiple different ways to do it, and I don't think a lot of people do it this way. Because again, you're only going to have that property for say 6 months or a year, but you do make it profitable, but then you're going to get more in return. You can become that person, Steph, where you're just like, I can take care of these families that aren't necessarily able to sell their home because of whatever market. And there's $1 million homes that are sitting on the market now, fully furnished, that people aren't even living in them. So it's just something to think about for everybody out there. You got to put your pitch together. It's a whole thing, but it's definitely lucrative if you look at it that way.
It's funny you say that because I did something somewhat similar. I took I'm an agent too, so I'm in the EXP network. So I think I went on both Texas and California and just started literally messaging all the agents, letting them know use me as a resource for short-term rentals. I do run a real estate business with managing on the side and buying. So getting into that sphere with agents I think is pretty huge so far. And so building those relationships too. Right now, I think I'm kind of doing the guerrilla method where I'm just targeting very specific agents because I find not everybody works full time. So I look for the most who is the most active agent, because those are the guys that have they have people that might benefit from short-term rentals in some way, shape, or form. So, but that's really cool. I like that, doing pro formas ahead of time and being like, I could do this for you if this is something that your owner might want.
And I think that right now realtors are missing. And Pace Morby talks about this. He's like, there's unicorn agents that understand sub 2, blah, blah, blah. He's totally right in a lot of sense. It's not just sub 2. There's a lot of agents that just don't freaking know how to do these kinds of things. And if you're an agent out there that understands you want to be know, like, and trust, right? Those are the 3 things that every agent, and you're probably taught this right now, everything that you do today is going to pay you in 6 months from now as an agent. That's literally what it is. They'll tell you that when you go into the training for agents. That same concept goes to with what we're doing in this space, in the short-term or mid-term space, is how do you become that person that every agent's going to want to go to? Because again, agents, all they want to do is sell a house. Steph, you know this. They don't care about the other stuff. They don't have that mindset of education or growth, or most don't. And I'm probably going to get hate mail from agents now saying that I'm full of crap, but in reality, that's what I've seen over the years of working in the space. So there's just so much opportunity for not only like you, myself, and Rafa to educate real estate agents, but also Steph, you're an agent. Like you could basically have that golden nugget. Like you could do everything, right? You can be able to handle all things. So I think you're in a good space to do it. I think it's just putting the pieces together.
Yeah, it's funny because the flip that I have, we were going to turn into a short-term rental, but instead me and another business partner decided just to put it on the market and sell it. And so now I'm putting that hat on. Meanwhile, it's like, by the way, for anybody else too, or any agents that are looking, if you know anyone that has needs for short-term rentals, just let me know and I'll be happy to look at it too. So it is a nice, I guess you could say funnel, having different experience points and also abilities to do it. I'm finding actually having the agent, people talk to you different too. I have to like sometimes figure out if I should tell them I'm an agent depending on depending on where this conversation is going. I know disclosure is supposed to always tell your agent, but I'm like, if I'm not buying or if I'm not doing an agent thing, like, is that really necessary? So it depends. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm also an agent. Next thing you know, like, oh, they can't be that bad. That credibility and trust goes up there because the standards of, oh, well, she's not going to screw me over if she's licensed. So,
yeah,
which I wouldn't do either way. But that, or I tell them I'm a nurse, and it's like they'll like one or the other, or it's like both. Like,
tell them both. Put all the hats on.
I know.
You show up in scrubs with like your badge, your or you would say your EXP. Show up in your scrubs with the EXP thing, so you get both. You're showing both.
It's funny because I think I still have like I work because I was case management, so I have a lab coat versus scrubs. But I once upon a time wore scrubs all the time, the Grey's Anatomy scrubs. But yeah.
That's funny. You know, Steph, you were the person in my previous life. You were the person that I was talking to. I think when you and I met in LA, we talked about this. I had to schmooze people like Stephanie back when she worked in the healthcare industry so that she would send me referrals for any patients that were going home that needed like home health or hospice or whatever. So you probably know exactly what I'm talking about right now, Steph.
I do, but I trust me, when you guys would visit, when like home health hospice would visit, I'd be like, oh, yay. And I mean, it was cool. And it's funny because it's like, I'm doing this now, but with like, I'm the person that's
Jack person.
Everybody else. But yeah, so you're in a great position then, because you already know kind of how that marketing part works.
Sales. Yeah, it's all sales at the end of the day. But if you just said it earlier, it's all about relationships. And Rafa and I talk about this so much. Like the relationship part of this industry is so connected. I mean, look at Rafa, built his business. Dude's in boutique hotels now buying freaking all over the place because of like one relationship that turned into two, turned into three. It's crazy. And it's such an old time thing. It's like so traditional. Like we've been having relationships forever, right? Like back into the BC days. It's not like anything new. It's not rocket science. But I think we just especially for like introverts like myself and Rafa. I don't know if you're an introvert or not, but
Actually, I am.
Rafa's not. Or Steph, you are.
No, I'm very introverted. Actually, people don't believe it, but it's true.
Me too. So it's hard for like people like me, but Rafa can just go out there and be like, yeah, this is what I want to do and blah, blah, blah. Like it's one of those like double-edged swords. But you know what? You mind if I change subjects right here, Rafa, real quick? I actually want to talk about Steph exiting healthcare. Like when we talk about this all the time, like Rafa's always been an entrepreneur at heart. Like this dude's been doing stuff for years. And like people like you and I, and we actually just talked about this yesterday with Rafa on another podcast. I didn't really have a plan together. Rafa was always like, dude, you need to leave your job. You need to leave your job. I was scared. I had golden handcuffs. Like I was making 200 grand stuff in my industry. You were probably making pretty damn close to that, if not more than that. So like, what was your thought process behind leaving? Did you just like, I'm leaving, I'm just done? Or did you have like, walk us through that for people that are like wanting to leave their jobs at some point?
It's funny because I took a pay cut actually to go work from home as a nurse. So, and that was already scary. I was in the hospital, and it's like a bubble when you're in sometimes these fields, especially healthcare. So I didn't tell anybody that I wanted to do real estate when I was still working as a nurse. I was too nervous or too scared of like hearing people tell me you shouldn't, because I was still convincing myself. So I didn't tell anybody, but instead I just said, I'm just going to go work from home for insurance company, or people call it the dark side. And I will let that be my way to get away from somewhat like corporate life, well, it's funny because it's actually all the same thing. But it was hard because it was the stability of the income, but also like I actually struggled not being a nurse because that was all I knew. And like, am I actually qualified to do anything other than this? Like, that's what I went to school for. So going over a lot of these mindset shifts. And then finally, I think what ended up happening was I was like, I'm going to have to take a bet on myself. Like, that's really what it's going to come down to. You know, I was like a really, really good employee. So I'm like, okay, I just got to do that, but with myself. And so it was hard. But then once I started getting some success within short-term rentals and real estate, it got easier. So it was a little bit of a side hustle, but I always have the end game of it's going to be the reason why I can leave this altogether to live like a life by your design type of thing. So transitioning was scary, having to learn new skills because nobody tells you, like I said, I don't feel like, I still sometimes don't feel very qualified, but I figured out like I can learn anything. So now it's like all self-schooling pretty much. And then, you know, talking to mentors that have done it and learning from that experience and then just doing the thing, whether or not I'm scared and doing it scared anyways. And then I come to find like, wow, that wasn't so bad. I just had to do the thing. So in nursing, it's like that structure. You have they talk about SOPs, right? And systems. You have a way of how to give medication so that you don't kill somebody. It's the same thing, but less, you know, aggressive in real estate and short-term rentals. You know, it's instead of like, I always tell my VA, like I almost sometimes say, oh, what's the census? What's the admin and discharge? Like, it's literally the same thing, but check in, check out. You know, what's the route? Like, are we booked? Are we not booked? So once I started translating it from nursing to real estate, and at least in the short-term side of things, and then even just real estate in general, it wasn't as bad. But I think I needed to at least get a couple of properties before I left my job for me to really just pull the plug and just do it full time. And now I'm like, wow, this is great. I should have done this sooner.
You have such a great growth mindset, Stephanie. Probably one of the best of a lot of people I've seen before, because like you transition very well and you're not scared to try anything new that you know is going to like better yourself in terms of your business, your relationships, your life. You know what I mean? And like I say that as a compliment because a lot of people, they're very scared to even get to that point or even attempt something like that. So I love the fact that you're like that. You know, yeah, specifically Jesse too. But you know, how does that? I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, dive into that just briefly because it's a big deal. It is. It really is, and it's impressive how you're like so like, you know, it's cool. I'm gonna try this. If I fail, who cares? I learned something new, and I'm gonna keep going to the next thing. Like, talk about that for a minute. How did you get to that point?
I think, to be honest, a lot of it, I'm a very driven person. So I literally said this to myself, like, my desire for success is stronger than my fear of failure. Like, at the end of the day, if I don't do this thing, whether I like stumble or not, I really don't care anymore about failing because I am going to regret it more not trying in the first place. And so I decided, like, you know what, I'm just going to lead my life with that as a core value to myself. So I literally had this written down somewhere, that my desire to succeed is stronger than my fear of failure. And every time that I'm trying something new or like, I don't know, but like the worst that could happen, okay, there's a lot that could happen. But I find that the support actually has been the huge thing behind me. I'm not a one-woman show. As long as I know that there are, you know, somebody has an answer, I just have to find that person or, you know, Google it. Like, anything's possible. But yeah, I think that knowing that failure means growth and really adopting that as just, that's what you have to hold on to. I find that now you're not held back by anything because it's all in your head, to be honest. Somebody else is making it happen. Why not you? And it's because you're holding yourself back. So, and that's because you're afraid if you fail, you know, all of a sudden you're not enough. So if you get rid of that and just say, I am regardless, then nothing scares you anymore. It scares you, but you're willing to do it anyways, if that makes sense. The fear is always there, but now I don't care.
I love your perspective on that. That was great.
One of the things that I just actually heard recently was like the 3 traits that people become the most successful. Like, they have these 3 traits. The first one is they think they deserve it, almost like a narcissist. like somehow the world like deserves it. And then here's the counterpart to this, which is weird. They don't think they're good enough. That's number 2. So it's like counterproductive to the first one, right? And then number 3 is the ability to have like set boundaries and to, what's the right word that I'm looking for when like you are not going to be distracted by anything? What's that word that I'm looking for?
Like you're just tunnel visioned, focused.
Yeah, like you can't, like you're not gonna, like if you're on a diet, you're not going to change. Like you're going to stick with your diet, even if, or if you're not drinking, there's people drinking around you. Like you're going to stick to it no matter what.
You're on your own trajectory, basically.
Yes, like those are the 3 traits of like the most highly successful people. Is literally those things, which is again counterintuitive. If you think about the first and the second one, it's like they think they deserve everything, but then they don't think they're good enough, which is freaking crazy. And I can almost guarantee that every single one of us on this that are on this conversation right now probably have at least two or three of those specific traits, which is something I wanted to talk about. So, Steph, I want to ask you this real quick, and this is something that I feel like I ask a lot of people, especially as you are now moving through this, and you brought this up a second ago. Like, what's your definition of success? Because success to Rafa and success to me can be totally different things. So, like, what do you define success as?
I feel like my definition has honestly changed. It changes all the time. It's almost like, what is success right now to me? And I think maybe seeing it like that versus a fixed thing is less scary, because we put these these hard set goals, and if we don't reevaluate and think of that, is that really what the goal or success is? I think people actually get really hung up on it. So for me, success, I define it as, did you reach what you were going for? Like at the bottom line of what you were going for, like the underlay here. Because people will say, well, I want to have more time for my family, but what does that actually look like? Because if you say, you know what I mean? It's hitting the actual bottom line. Or if you want to quit your job, how much do you have to make? Did I succeed in getting closer to that goal? That's actually more of a success to me than hitting the goal itself sometimes. Like at least on the way to that goal. So I know that wasn't a straight answer of what success is, but I just think of it as, what are you trying to do today? What's your goal? And did you reach that one goal today? That's versus way down the line. Because I think people get really hung up on 5-10 years from now versus just get through today. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And not only that, but it's like everybody's definition of success is totally different. Rafa, what is your success?
I don't know, dude. You get such a deep question. Like, to me, it's very similar to what Stephanie said, where am I compared to where I was last year? And if I'm further ahead, I'm being successful. Simple as that.
You made that sound too easy, bro.
I mean, that's what it is.
That's
yeah, I mean, it's good. Look at this guy.
Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and be like, what's success? Once I see, here's the thing. So many people set these ultimate goals, right? Oh, I want to get to $100,000 a month. Oh, I want to get to $10,000 a month. Oh, I want to own $10 billion in real estate. Oh, and then you get there, and then what? You set a bigger goal, and then you start pushing for that. And are you successful along the way because you're achieving these goals? Most people get stuck in this one-track mind where it's like, I just got to do more, got to do more, got to do more, got to get bigger, got to do bigger, got to do bigger. Never actually realizing what they've accomplished along the way. For me, it took a long time for me to realize that it's like, hey, as long as I'm doing better than last year, I'm doing good and I'm already successful, right? Yes, I have ultimate goals of things I want to hit. And when I hit them, awesome, right? But they're these unattainable, unreachable, like unrealistic goals. So that even if I don't hit them, everything I've hit along the way to get there, it's going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe I accomplished all that. I can't believe that even happened. I can't believe I even got here, right? And then how do you appreciate that in terms of, are you successful? I look at success as in, am I appreciating the journey and what I've accomplished in the past? And if I did better than last year, I'm successful because I'm getting to where I want to go and I'm growing and I'm doing bigger things. Simple as that.
That reminds me of I've just read this book like within the past year, The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan. So literally the whole premise is like for high achievers who always want more but are never satisfied because they always are comparing themselves to where they want to be versus where they started and where they came from.
Dude, I talked to so many wealthy investors and not just real estate investors in these mastermind groups that I'm in. And the common topic is always like, oh man, I'm not doing enough. I've gone here and I need to do more. And I'm like, bro, and I recommend that book to like these like really high level people. And they're like, literally a week later, a month later, like, bro, I can't believe you, thank you for sending that book my way. Always, every single time, because nobody ever takes the time to really realize what they've accomplished or what they've done. It's a big, big deal.
I'm writing that down, Rafa. Gap in the Gain.
Mm-hmm. Dan Sullivan.
Dude, I told you that thing like a million times already. I made a Instagram reel about it like
Did you?
6 months ago.
I think I did too, actually,
Yeah.
about that book.
I gotta
Really
check
good.
that out. Yeah.
Dan Sullivan's awesome. I've read all this stuff.
Yeah, I think Rafa's right. Like once people get to a certain degree, it's like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's like, dude, I struggle with that. Like I'm very transparent about that. I've been talking about that for a long time. It's like, you hit this goal, boom, what's the next one? What's the next one? It's like, it's hard to find that space. But I think in that process of learning, and we just talked about this again yesterday, like money's not the driver for me anymore. Like it used to be. Like I was all about money. I wanted to make money. And now it's not that. And I think that, Steph, you're spot on when you say your success changes. I think it should change. We're not the same people we were 3 months ago. We're not the same people we were 6 months ago. And if you are that, then you're not evolving. Like you're just not. So it's something to kind of really look at and see, take a look in the mirror and see who that person actually truly is. Real quick on this before we move on to the next subject, on leaving your job, because this was a big thing for me. Did you have any certain like benchmarks you need to have? Like Steph, were you like for me, it was like, I want to make sure 10K is like very consecutive every month where I don't have to worry about not having that 10K. Is that where you were at? Like, did you have any like benchmarks that you needed to hit prior to leaving?
Yeah, I needed to replace my income. That for me, that was pretty much, as long as I was making enough to replace my income, then there's really no reason why I couldn't quit. So once I hit that goal, I quit. That was my benchmark.
So I got a question for you though, really quick, Jesse, really fast. Because short-term rentals isn't passive income, right? And sometimes it fluctuates. Sometimes you have good months and sometimes you have really bad months. How do you structure that? I only ask because I do profit first, so I always keep money aside for my own or profit account anyway, right? So like I always have a month where I can always pay myself, whether I have shitty months or good months. But some units in my business just do really terrible sometimes, and there's no money coming in. Do you guys do the same thing, or do you guys, because, okay, so for example, if you have 100 single families and they all cash flow you 200 positive every single month, right? In a perfect world, there's no maintenance, there's no like anything breaks for 5 years, right? In a perfect world, which we all know is not going to happen. But let's just say now you have 200 times 100, right? That's passive true income that you can pocket every single month. But with short-term rentals, sometimes it can be 10 grand, sometimes it can be $500, sometimes it can be maybe negative for some of those that are in really fluctuating markets. How do you guys do that, and how do you structure that? Because in order for you to hit that number, right, for you to replace your income, you need to have that consistency. But it's not consistent in short-term rentals, and a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people don't ever talk about that. So I want to hear your perspective on this, both of you.
You know what's funny? So I didn't think about that when I quit. I'll be super honest. I was just like,
Nobody
okay,
did.
That's why I asked.
So like now I do the profit first thing too, where I have always owner's comp, profit, taxes, all that gets dispersed every time I get a payout. But before, honestly, I didn't know any better, and I honestly didn't care. I felt like not only did I have enough to replace my income, I had enough in the pipeline to keep it going. And I think that helped a lot. So to me, I did bank on future income. Well, the way I saw it was my time was split. Like I had my work computer and my personal computer I used for real estate. And I was doing both during my full-time job at home. Hopefully Signet isn't watching me, but not that it matters anymore. But I was like, if I can put all my effort and energy into this, like I will be successful no matter what. Like I'm doing this already for work, and I have, I'm getting the systems down. I have pipeline coming in. I saw that as like that. I didn't care about the highs and lows as long as I kept reserves, which fortunately I had reserves in case, or at least for the first year. So that's what it was for me.
Yeah, reserves are so important. I think that when I first left my job, I had 6 months of reserves sitting in my account. But there's a difference here, Rafa. Like with short-term rentals, keep in mind when I left, I was midterm renting half of my units. So that midterm rental consistency cash flow is like, it's not like short-term rentals where you have the fluctuation numbers.
Yeah, but still only for what, three to 4 months at a time.
Well, at the time when I left, I had 6 properties. 3 of them were midterm rentals, and they were cash flowing me $3K each month. And that was after
for how long? Couple of months?
It was 6 months. One of those guests was there for a year. So like I left that with knowing that I'm going to have X amount of cash flow per month on those 3 properties. And the other 3 that I had were short-term rentals, and those were doing extremely well. Keep in mind, like 2020 to 2022, I fucking killed it in the short.
Everybody did, bro.
Yeah. So it was like, my brain at that time was like, I'm going to pull aside cash. I'm going to keep that. But also I know I have this consistency of this money there. So I was almost like those midterm rental contracts through the insurance company were almost like, that's my W-2 for the next 6 months. Like I'm going to have that $9K no matter what. It's coming in every single month from just those 3 properties. So I think for me, and that's why I always like, advocate for this space. And again, you guys, this is circumstantial, like midterm insurance contracts, like somebody's got to lose a house by Roffer's property. It's got to be in a certain area. It's got to be this certain property. So it's very circumstantial. I think when I talk about it, I make it sound very simple. At the end of the day, it's not freaking simple. It's like, there's a lot of variabilities that come to it. But again, that it was more passive. And that's why I always argue with Rafa, like short-term or midterm, like what's more passive? For me, it was like, it's almost like a set it and forget it. I didn't even hear from them unless there was like a big problem or something like that. So obviously I'd pay myself and then pay the mortgage and all that stuff and keep the funds in there. And a lot of times, to be honest with you guys, I kept a lot of the funds. I didn't even touch those funds at all. I just used that money again the next year to buy another property. So that $9K every month for the end of the year, I was sitting on $80K, and I would just use that $80K to buy another property. Do it again for the next year, save that money again. But again, this is like years of compounded growth over. It's not easy to do. That's what I'm trying to say. It takes time and energy.
Well, like any business, takes time and energy. So that's cool. Okay, I get it. I wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of listeners don't even think about that, right? Or a lot of people that are new don't think about that. They think they're going to pocket all the money. And I always tell everybody, dude, you got to keep at least 3 months worth of your revenue in there because you can have a bad month, right? It's in my markets. Yeah. I thought you were going to tell me like 2 years knowing you, but for me now, even now, like I just reinvest everything. Like I didn't pay myself anything out of my short-term rental business for like the first like 2.5 years at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Me too.
So talking about how like in the last episode, Stephanie, we talked a little bit about, like what money really matters or whatever. And I was like, well, I didn't pay myself anything for the first 2.5 years and I was living on the couch with this like super successful business, but it's because I kept reinvesting it to grow, right? Now I'm paying myself a ton for these experiences and all this fun stuff. So people need to understand that. Anyway, this has been really good so far. Time's going by super fast. So we need to transition. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour here so we can close it off. I want to ask you, being that this is the big break show, we need to know, what was your big break? Was it something in life, real estate, investing, whatever it was? Is there a defining moment that you had that made you go from being a nurse to being the investor, or that made you realize, hey, I need to get into this growth mindset? Like, what was it? Is there a defining moment for you?
Yeah, I remember sitting at my desk and I was like, am I really living to my fullest potential? And I know that sounds super existential and all that. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the top is self-actualization. And for me, like I find fulfillment knowing that I am pretty much being the most challenged. Not that nursing didn't challenge me. It challenged the heck out of me. But it wasn't, I'll be honest, it wasn't my passion. It was good, but it wasn't great. And I wanted greatness. And so I found that I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I was meant for simply more. And so I found finally when I left the hospital, when it actually became real that I could leave nursing altogether, like that was the shift, because then I'm like, oh my gosh, anything is possible now. I don't have to be tied to this one identity that I thought that was going to be it for till I was 65. So figuring out that what I really wanted for myself, or at least what I didn't want for myself, sometimes that's a lot of people find that they don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want, was what really just drove me to take the leap and just put it all on myself and know that I'll be okay at the end of the day. Plus I still have my license, so I can always go back, but not that I want to. But I really could, and I think that also helped me too. But I knew I was always meant for more. Now I'm finally getting to embody that, and it's super hard. Nobody ever tells you how hard it is, but yeah. I'm much happier. I'm so much happier now.
Good. Yeah, that's what it's about. I love that.
Yeah, so you, as a nurse, you can always go back to per diem pay, right, Steph? Like if you didn't work and you just work like 2 days a week and make X amount of money, that's the cool thing about being a clinician is you can throw a freaking rocket ship into any state, anywhere in the U.S. and literally get a job, and you can do per diem work. So that's something to fall back on. So you have that, which is awesome. A lot of people don't have that luxury in a lot of ways.
I pretend I do, though, so that I don't lax. I keep working as hard as I need to work or at the level I need to. But yeah, it's nice to know that at the end of the day, like I could go back, but
Good.
it's not
I don't think you ever will. Yeah, I don't think you ever will either. Okay, so we're at the top of there, as Rafa said. So what's an actionable step that somebody could take right now, Steph, to like move along on their business or something they could do? We talked about the gap in the gain. Like, what was an actionable step somebody could take after listening to this episode?
I think an actionable step is to as mindset as this sounds, truly write down everything good about yourself. And I say that because it's what stops people from moving forward is that self-limiting belief that they aren't or they can't do something. So whatever strengths you have, write them down and then make an affirmation statement of whatever it is and then go from there. I think that shift is needed for people to really get out of their own heads.
You're making me cry right now, Steph.
Oh, don't cry.
My contacts are like rubbing on my eyes, so you guys are going to see me like...
I want to ask you something really quick. What that pops to mind right now? What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Ooh, okay. Best advice that I've gotten. Oh, somebody told me this once, and it's make your goals the actionable steps to get to your bottom line. I used to not have like actionable steps for anything. It was just like, I want this. And then that was it. And so when they said, break that down into what are the steps to get to that and make those your goals. Now that's all I do. And I find that I actually make progress when I do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely good. Well, Steph, you've said it all today. You went from being a nurse and then deciding to drop the heritage that the Filipinos have of being a nurse. And you're just like, screw that, everybody. I'm doing my own thing. And here you are today owning short-term rentals. You opened your own business. You have the STR Nation. Let's talk about that. If you got a quick second so everybody can figure that out. I know you have a summit coming up too, right?
Yes. So with all of this, STR Nation was born. And STR Nation is basically a group of short-term rental investors based out of SoCal. But now we welcome everybody from all over the place to join us. So we have a conference coming up actually in September. It's the last Monday and Tuesday of September in sunny San Diego. It's our second time doing this. We did it in Vegas last year. And it's going to be everything short-term rental related. We have people that are coming from everywhere in the U.S. for it too. So, and that community right there was what I feel like really helps it, not only just myself, but I see other people making progress in their real estate business because of the connections that they made from these meetups that we do. So, yeah, we're coming come to San Diego. You guys should come.
Yeah, just in a couple of years, you built your business, you built your co-hosting business, you left your job, and you're creating a community. Freaking amazing.
Thank you.
Kudos to you, right, Rafa? Steph's making shit happen.
You know, it's funny because I was like, oh, I don't think about that. But when you guys say it, I'm like, dang, that sounds pretty good. I should actually acknowledge that. So maybe I need to reread the gap in the gain. But thanks, guys. You guys have also been really cool to watch and grow too. And I always learn a lot from you guys.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I learned everything from Rafa. Secretly, just so you guys know, everything that I know is from Rafa.
I think we need to record that segment and put it on the front of every episode going forward.
Make it your opening line.
Right.
We all learn from each other, man.
Yeah. So cool. Steph, thank you so much for being here. Where can folks find you?
You can find me on IG, you can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on YouTube at Stephanie Figueros is my handle for pretty much everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate it. Everything will be in the show notes too.
All right, cool.